YouTube playlist along the way. So thanks for making time. And again, what I know is a super busy week for everybody, to reconsider how we facilitate learning in your teaching and learning context. It is a really fun opportunity to just kind of redesign what kind of tasks that we have kids engaging in. And one of those tools is definitely through the use of a blog. Blogger is one of those tools in the G Suite. So this is why I'm sharing this one first. However, it is worthwhile exploring other tools. I know, kids may be updating a blog for their band through WordPress. They might be using other, Weebly has a blog function also. The one that I'm sharing today is Blogger because it's a part of our suite that we have access to, so it's no issues with sign-in. It uses the same sign as what you do in Rapid Identity. In order to access it, I'm not yet finding it. Just as a heads up, when I go to this, I'm not yet seeing it in the upper right for Blogger. So you'll just need to type in blogger.google.com if you want to find out how to access it on the editing side. This is just a easy, plain test blog this is what the student view would look like when they're sharing their blog with the teacher. They would use this link, so it'd be first name, last name, .blogspot.com. And again, I know that because I'm using this sign in here in the upper right for Google, so that's going to match up pretty well. On the edit side, when you log in at first, and I'm just going to move this little stop sharing button down in the upper or lower right so that I can see better and share it with you better. And feel free to ask questions along the way by audio or entering them in the comment piece. I want to let you know that Blogger has the ability to have several blogs running at the same time. So you'll see that I have a test one created, but if I wanted to create a new blog, for example, for student council or for a different activity that maybe I advise or another class, that you could do that. So be thinking about, you have kind of one site then where you can situate several blogs along the way. So when you're editing, you want to make sure that you're in the right one. And I am, of course, in my test one. I guess a couple of the pieces here that I want to show you before we get into creating a first blog is that you have posts. Posts, of course, are everything that you're creating. So think of like a post as like a log or a journal entry. Here I have my first one that I created, and then I'll show you how I create a second one again as a test. These are all that are published. You can kind of save it like you can an email, and you can have it kind of queued up and ready to publish. Like you can with, like I said, with email, you can get some stats along the way so you can find out just how many times people are viewing your content. You can play with the comment features here and also in the settings feature. That to me is the best part about blogs, is now that you can have students share. And I'll show you soon just how I would ask students to share their blog, and that's to use a Google Doc share page. For example, I might ask my first hour, okay, everybody put their link then to their blog on a common Google Doc so that I can go back to it as the teacher. And then the second layer of that might be to ask a part of the task that students write that they comment on maybe 2 or 5 of their peers' blogs, in any given segment, any given unit, for example. A couple more pieces here. Again, there are a lot of functions. The one that maybe comes to mind quickest as a teacher is, oh my goodness, is any person going to be able to locate that blog, a student blog? And my suggestion would be to edit the privacy features. So within settings, you're going to see that when I click settings, you're going to click into search preferences. And one of the maybe it's in settings. Let me click into basic. So it looks like in settings basic, one of the options about privacy is to be able to edit whether people can find from the outside using a search engine my students' blogs. So just like I have a 7th grader at home, I don't want anyone to just be able to search him out. So I would want to edit that, and you want to coach your students to not let that search engine find your blog. So you would want to save that change along the way. This is the link that people will share out. You can get fancy and you can like buy a domain. So if you want to call it, meetdaryl.com, you could do that, but that's kind of like a high-end user function that we want to maybe address later. But this is basically what students will share out, is their first name, last name, .blogspot.com will be theirs along the way. And you want to front load conversations with people to say, the expectation is that these links stay within this class, just like you would with any digital work, to model that digital citizenship along the way. You can play also with the post, comments, and sharing functions in setting. So you can decide how those comments look. Are they embedded? Are they a full page of comments? Who can comment? My suggestion is to have this not on anyone, but instead people with user accounts. So that's going to connect a comment to a logged in user. And then again, you have that tracking feature like you do in Classroom. In Google Classroom, you have the ability to see who made that comment. So in case something was inappropriate, again, know your audience with using blogs. You could do it. You just want to be as secure, and I guess I think about security a lot, not only as a teacher, but also as a parent of 3. You can decide what that comment moderation is like, in terms of if you always want to be able to moderate what comments are pushed out or like viewable. And I can make it always, and you can decide then what is the email moderation if you want to push that out to another email address, so that you're constantly getting the ability to press yes, I want that to always happen. Or maybe you just say never, because you always have a log of doing this. So you have like a log of, that if the student's name is Emily Parsons, that her username is tied to that comment, and you're not worried about that at all. So once you get into the kind of the settings, you want to be sure that you're thinking about that basic setting of not visible. And again, you'll be able to go back to this webinar to double check where that is. That lives in settings, basic, and you want to toggle so that it's not visible by search engines. And this would be the link that students share. So I'm going to model that quickly by just copying and pasting. And I would say, hey, everybody, be sure to post your blog link to that share page. Now, a quick trick, as someone who I taught for 4 years, 90% of my classes were taught online. A huge time saver to coach your kids to do is to coach them to turn in on a share page like this in alphabetical order, so that it hopefully closely matches what you have open in your grade book. Whether you're grading or assessing in Classroom, if you're assessing in Synergy only, if you're assessing in other tools, it kind of helps to be able to match those up by last name, or however your preference is. That's a big time saver. The other piece to this is, if you're feeling newer to Drive, is that you want this to be able to be editable. This share document, to be editable by people that are within Anoka Hennepin. And this again forces kids to log in through rapid identity or the single sign-on here. It creates that culture of we're always going to be signed in, we're always going to be logged in, and it's just going to help model those digital citizenship skills. And to do that, I've listed how that looks here, and you can just toggle that, of course, with share, just like we do when we share out documents with colleagues. And I can toggle this to be edit or comment or view. This would be one that I want people to have editing rights, because I want them to do the sharing with me. It saves us a bunch of time too. So I'm going to go back to posts, and I'm going to show you how to create my first post. So now that I know that I'm in my test blog and I'm clicked into posts, I'm just going to create a new post, just like you would create a new email. And it edits a lot like a Google Doc, right? So if I have a a welcome message here, and maybe you have a prompt. Now, I will say, as a language teacher, I'm certified as a 712 language teacher, and meaning world languages. So I taught Spanish for 16 of my 20 years in teaching and learning. I found that English language arts folks have a lot of awesome prompts. So if you're hungry for prompts, ask your English folks about what they use, or other language teachers. So like a would you rather prompt might be one of those blog posts, or I can actually share in this schedule, the calendar, some resources that I've used. One of the books that I got the richest ideas from was an English teacher's book called The Book of Questions. And it was just a really great thing, like, what do you do in your free time? Or describe a perfect night. And, of course, you're going to want to make them pertain to your text, or your content area. But we have to remember, too, that this is also a chance for us to foster some relationships when kids really need us. And I would invite you to really think about using this, maybe in addition to content, being able to like create and establish and continue relationships with kids through writing. I guess I'm thinking of my own 3 kids, in that my 7th grader is doing a lot of the care for the smaller 2 kiddos, while my wife, who teaches 3rd grade, for example, is trying to design her own instruction for the first time in her life online. So be thinking about this not just in terms of content, but also in terms of establishing relationships, fostering relationships. So like in a lot of things in Google Docs, pardon the phone ring, but we still have a lot of things shaken in the tech office. You can hyperlink anything. So you could link to a Google Classroom assignment. And this is something, again, I just think this is a really one of those rich skills, just to be able to highlight something, create a link, and again, I can just include that web address. If I wanted it to go to a doc, if I wanted it to go to a share page, a classroom assignment, I can do that, and I can ask it to open the link in a new window. So I can click OK, so that now when I click into this, of course, like any hyperlink, that it just brings me directly to that share page. So, again, in a blog, students can be thinking about linking. So if they're writing about animals, maybe they're describing a resource that they're familiar with through class, and they want to hyperlink that, or they want to link it back to some peer edit feedback that they got from their neighbor, and they can do that through hyperlink. You can highlight text, you can insert images, you can do that through all of these pieces. Again, you can choose files, of course, and grab those. On my interface here, I can pull from Drive, I can pull from Dropbox, because I've got those available. Again, the beautiful thing that I think about when choosing tools and being very careful when I do it, I think about, what do kids already know? What are they familiar with? And one of those pieces for me as a secondary teacher is they use Google Drive a lot in a lot of other classes. So to be able to pull assets from Google Drive is going to be really helpful. You can insert a movie from a YouTube link. So if a kid wants to write a post and include that prompt of that video, they can do that by including that link to the video. They can insert, I believe this one is for special characters. And then there's, again, all these formats. So quoting text and bullet points, just like you do in a Google Doc along the way. And again, that's why I like it, is because it looks familiar and it acts like a lot of things that are Google in nature, because it's part of the G Suite. I can preview this before I save it and publish it. So I guess I always go back to saving it, and before I do, I just want to call it something different. So I'll just call mine test 2 before I preview it. Now, of course, this really isn't a fancy schmancy blog post because I haven't added a ton of content, but maybe I'm betting you have ideas or your kids have ideas of content that they want to do. Again, I think you could achieve similar results in terms of teaching and learning by just doing a lot of this in Google Docs first. And then when students have like a pretty polished product in Docs, they could just copy and paste that into Blogger, make it a post, and call that something different along the way. So again, Blogger for me is a chance to take student writing, give it an authentic audience, which is a huge piece to this. Now they have their peers. They can share it. I guess I would also invite, while I see my link available, is that maybe now you want to think about using a blog as a part of a student portfolio. And I don't mean to share this to overwhelm you, but this to me is a really ripe opportunity to think about how we can have this be a part of a portfolio, so that when kids leave 12th grade, that maybe their blog is a part of that. So that's a little bit about how we could maybe take that, and now that's a part of a really a showcase of knowledge, or a chance for kids to showcase mastery as a part of that. So if you're feeling overwhelmed right now, don't go to that link. If you're feeling like, hey, that really fits the bill for something that I'm craving, then I would invite you to do that. So again, if I'm saved, this is a chance to go from save to publish. Publish then puts that as a part of the second posting that I have here. And I'm just going to test it. I'm going to test it by clicking on my link. Actually, I'm going to make it a hyperlink. Practice what I preach here. Go to my hyperlink and see, now I've got a post of test 1, and now I have a post of a test 2. A quick way to test if your links are viewable outside of our network would be to choose an incognito window. This is a feature that I know teachers have. If you ever want to test a link for someone who is outside of our network, you can do that with an incognito window. Just as kind of a heads up, I can do that in Chrome by going to the 3-dot settings here and down to incognito window. So that is a very quick rundown of what it looks like on the creation side in terms of creating some posts with new post. If I feel like I want to edit it, by the way, I can just click into the one that I want to edit, and I can make that change. So if you want to add something to your post, or if students want to come back to that one, they can sure do that on their editing side along the way. What questions come up right away? And as soon as I get done fielding those questions, I'm always curious to find out how people are thinking about this in their own context. Like I see Wayne posted a good point here about how he's thinking about using these in his context for relationships, which I think is a really great idea. What questions come up right away, or concerns? And feel free to unmute and add that question. Or if you're feeling shy, you can do that in the comments feature also, while I grab another swig of coffee. Okay. When you see this being shared out, what ideas come up first? I see the relationships piece, and I'm gonna look at names, so I can get an idea of what ideas stand out to you first. Like Laurel and Facts. Are there ideas that you would want kids to blog about in Facts, whether it's creating a product in a design class, a fashion class? As a foodie, I think about being able to showcase food, right? And be able to describe, the prep time that went into making a dish. Are there other things that come to mind, Laurel? about kids sharing their writing, and feel free to add their, feel free to share the add, excuse me, feel free to add what you'd like when you unmute your mic along the way.
I was just trying to figure out how to unmute the mic.
Sure, that's quite all right. It looks like you got it. And for everybody else that's in the lower center of your screen, it's the left toggle for turn off mic, or you can turn it on, of course. Yeah. Good morning, Laurel, by the way.
Good morning. I am so overwhelmed by technology at the
Sure.
moment. I can't quite see myself getting through this,
Okay.
but I could see it as a good place to talk about different types of foods, kind of foods they've been possibly making at home during the time that they were out.
Mhm.
What the differences are in not being able to go to the grocery store or not doing some different things. I had a sister-in-law who shared a Dennis the Menace cartoon today, which said, "Can't we go out to eat? I'm tired of eating groceries." And I thought that's probably what a lot of these kids are thinking at the moment, is they're not used to eating at home.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when Laurel describes that to me, I just think about too is how quickly we can access blogs in our content areas, in our areas of expertise. So if I'm in a science context, I can easily Google resources for science, blogs on science, so that you can show them an example of what that might look like. When I think about foods, I think of there's a chef, I think her name, she goes by Pioneer Woman on Food Network. Laurel, do you know her name offhand?
I do not, but I'm familiar with her.
She's in Oklahoma. And she has a really great site where, again, you can use as an example of what that might look like. And if you're thinking about distance learning, maybe preparing a dish at home is one of those options. And they can use that then as a chance to think about the prep work that goes in advance to that. So maybe that blog entry looks like several things, several steps. Entry one is maybe about food prep, execution, post number 2 in that same blog, and then post 3 is a reflection on how did the experience go? What would you do differently in that? Mm-hmm. Other context that you're itching to share or questions that come up first? I want to honor people's time. I think I had slated till 11:45, and it's Friday. It's the end of a really busy week, but are there contexts that you're thinking about? Or are there questions that you say that maybe come up first? Lee Drummond, good answer, Jim Rude. Nicely done. Jim Rude for the win. You got it. All right. Well, again, this is a chance for us to explore a tool, just like I'm sure you're doing already. It's a chance to just go to blogger.google.com and just play around and play with the editing. Don't hesitate to share with me a link if you want to test it out. Don't hesitate to reach out to your tech teacher in your building if you're not at Blaine High School, to just ask, hey, can I try this out? Can I run this idea by you? Does this seem like the right fit? That's a lot of what I'm doing this week is hey, I've never done a Google Hangout. Can I test and practice with you? Yes, absolutely you can. Okay. Stay on the line if you have questions. Great to see everybody. And like I said, stay on if you have questions, but otherwise I just want to wish you a great first weekend after distance learning week 1. I'm sure you are exhausted, and it's just been really fun to be a part of this distance learning in a tech integration role, just to see how innovative teachers have been in a new way. They're just reconsidering how they're doing teaching and learning. So again, thanks for dropping by. Stay on if you have questions, and good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for dropping by. I'm going to stop recording while people are dropping off, and feel free to stay on if you have questions.